Well, thank you everyone for attending this session. It's great to see some students' faces. We've only seen a few, and so this session, you guys win the award for the most faces. Maybe everyone's awake now. I'm Julie Huffer. I run the Quad City Builders and Remodelers Association, and this is our Student Trades Initiative second year for our Build Your Career Forum. Normally we'd like to do this in person, but because of COVID, you know, like everything else, we're doing it online. So we're excited that we're still able to connect with you all and with people in the trades professions and give you a little taste of what some of the people out there in the workforce are doing. So first thing I just want to mention is anyone else that's on there student-wise, if you want to throw your video on so we can see you, we appreciate that. It makes it nice for the speakers to know who they're talking to. There is a chat room on this, so if you have questions, I know a lot of people submitted them ahead of time, but you're welcome to type in a question, and then Kelsey, who is our moderator today, she will get those to the speakers. Last little bit of business is that we at the Home Builders are here to help students in school and out of high school. So if you want to be in the trades, or there's something that you're not sure about, or you want to start a summer job or do a part-time job or have questions for when you're done with school, let me know. You can, Mary, if you could type in my info for me on the chat, write my number down. You can email, call me, and I can try to direct you to get you to a business or get you into the trade somehow. As a student, you could, you know, like I said, work on the weekends, work part-time. That'll get your foot in the door, maybe to something that you're interested in seeing more of what they do. So I'm here to help. But for the rest of the session, I'm going to turn it over to Kelsey King with EICC, and take it away, Kelsey.
Thanks, Julie. Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here with you today. I serve as the Admissions and Community Outreach Coordinator for the Scott Community College campus, which is a part of Eastern Iowa Community Colleges. And so the way the session will work, as Julie mentioned, if you do have questions, please go ahead and put those in the chat. And then we'll get to those at the appropriate time towards the end if they're not answered during the presentation. So we're very grateful for these professionals to have taken time out of their busy schedules to talk with you all today. So I'm glad to see your faces and your cameras. Let's stay engaged and ask them some really great questions. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and introduce the speakers for the heavy equipment operator and mechanic session. So joining us, we have Sergeant Brack, who is with the U.S. Army National Guard. Sergeant Brack has served 12 years in the Iowa Army National. He served 7 of those years with the 12N heavy equipment operator. He used his military experience as an operator to advance his civilian career as a superintendent for a general construction company, and Sergeant Brack now serves full-time in the Guard. Also joining us is Sergeant Johnson of the U.S. National Guard. Sergeant Johnson has served in the Guard for the last 7 years. He is now serving as a 91B wheeled mechanic. He is responsible for the maintenance and repair of many types of military, large and small. So thank you both for joining us. I'll go ahead and turn it over to the both of you to talk more about your careers.
Yeah, are you able to see me right now?
Yes, we can see and hear you. Thank you.
I'm sharing the video correctly. Okay.
Yep.
So I'm Sergeant Brack, and primarily, so with my past as a heavy equipment operator, I've utilized that. And you can kind of see some of these pieces of equipment behind me a bit as we turn.
Go ahead. Hang on just a second. I'm sorry, Sergeant Brack. Jen, could you take off the share, and we'll add so we can see just his screen. There you go. Thank you.
That work?
Yes.
Okay. So right behind me here, I've got what we call a deuce. And then behind that one, we have 2 out of many different types of equipment that we utilize. But we're trained to operate everything from heavy construction equipment from D7 dozers and up. We operate scrapers, loaders, front loaders, backhoes, fork trucks, large forklift operations, as well as dump trucks, and hauling trucks, like the large gooseneck trailers that you see kind of going down the highway, and there's usually a bunch of military equipment on the back of it. So I've utilized a lot of that in my own personal life as well as on my professional side, whether it be kind of helping with my own home repairs, or from the other side, being a superintendent. I worked for a general contractor for a long time, and my skill set in heavy equipment operations really helped me pave the way as far as when it came to doing the construction aspect and organizing a job site. I knew how to utilize my heavy equipment operators already because I had done the job, whether that be setting the foundation for a building, or whether that be, you know, constructing roads and ditches, things of that matter. Military specifically, we primarily as operators deal more in the wheelhouse of doing roads, ditches, and fortifying areas. I've done road operations before, helping construct culverts. Some of this equipment is more than just heavy equipment operating. Some of it is also a matter of chainsaw operations, filling sandbags. The big large tan one behind me here, you can actually utilize that when we have the flooding downtown and in Cedar Rapids and in like the coast right here by Davenport, Iowa. A lot of times we'll take those out there and we'll utilize a sandbagger on the front of them to help load multiple sandbags at one time instead of just shoving it into one bag. So we've gotten to dabble in a lot of different things, but I would say by far that's one of the most rounded job sites that I've gotten to incorporate throughout my career.
So Sergeant Breck, I'm gonna just pause you for a second, and then if we can pull the presentation back up. There were just a couple of the descriptions we kind of wanted to pull up first here. So I apologize for that. I kind of jumped ahead there.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll get those pulled up here on the screen. So can you talk a little bit about what a heavy equipment operator is that you see here?
Yeah, so heavy equipment operators in general, I mean, as you can see on here, it does a lot of different things, but operating equipment clears, grades land. When I'm talking about graders, we're talking about larger construction equipment that helps grade the roads, that actually forms the structure of the road. When you're talking about buildings, we're flattening surfaces or helping to dig out holes so that we can actually put the proper concrete footings in there that make structures possible, especially the large commercial buildings that you see today. Going forward, yes, airports, runways, those are another big deal. I know specifically overseas, they've utilized us as far as helping build airports and airstrips, Bagram Air Base, Afghanistan, lots of different areas, but airstrips, just like the ones that we have here. I mean, the ones that are right here at Moline Airport are the same similar structures to what we've done overseas. Power generation facilities, dams, levees, all of that. We're talking about equipment that is dozers, which this guy right here, green one with the big blade, that's just one form of a dozer, but that is a large earth moving operation equipment. So that is literally going to build I can dig a ditch from 10 to 12 feet wide and potentially up to 15 feet deep if need be. But we do some serious operations with these equipment. It's not lightly handled.
And then can we go ahead and go to the next slide, please? Thank you. You want to talk a little bit more about the heavy construction equipment?
Are you wanting me to move that on?
I think actually that was for Sergeant Johnson.
Okay, there you go. There you go. So this one's kind of speaking more of the mechanical side of the house.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Sergeant Johnson here. Let's see.
So just read the slide and kind of speak to it.
All right. As a heavy construction equipment mechanic, the industrial mechanic who specializes in working with heavy machinery, using construction, farming, railroading, transporting, they work with the biggest engines, inspecting services, and repairing any damage to engine or vehicles. All right. So I'm a 91 Bravo, which is a diesel mechanic. Basically, I work with anything that's on wheels. We have a few examples of some of the vehicles that I work with, so I'll go ahead and show you that.
Okay, we can go ahead then and go back to the full screen mode so we can see what they're showing. Thank you. Are they still there, Sergeant Brack and Sergeant Johnson? We can't see you, or at least I can't. It's black. Anybody else seeing them? No? Okay.
I think they must have pulled out the cord or something.
Uh-oh.
Must have turned it off. Oh, there they are.
Senator Mike?
We can't see you or hear you. At least I can't. Maybe I'll put in the chat just in case they can't hear me.
We have to love technology when it works, and then have a lot of patience. So one of the things that COVID has, I think, taught all of us is that patience is a part of every job, and that we have to learn how to do that, and then how to fill our time.
Okay, so I'm a quick little message in the chat. Hopefully they'll see it and can reconnect or figure out what's going on there. Thanks for your patience, everyone.
And Julie, do you, having been in the industry, you want to tell a little bit about yours, and maybe this is a great time we can fill until we get back the sergeants back on.
Sure. Well, I was talking to Xavier, I think, and Caden, that, you know, sometimes when you guys are making these decisions for school, you have no idea what you want to do. I have a son at PV, and he's not quite sure. So with these sessions, and one of the things I can do at the Home Builders is, if you aren't quite sure and you want to pick up a summer job or a part-time job, I have different industry professionals, from landscapers to, you know, the National Guard would probably be a different situation, but other industries that you're going to be limited while you're in high school, because if you're not 18, but where you could do some things at these places of business and make some money and get your feet wet on what some of these different things are. So if you, Mary did you put in the chat my information? I think you did.
I did.
You can call me anytime, you can email me, and if you want to get connected with a business, that's something that I can help you with. And when I say business, all different kinds. You know, we have anything that has to do with building or remodeling a home, from a designer to a landscaper to a garage door guy to a builder, remodeler, a carpenter, a plumber. You know, there's all kinds of places that you can do that to see if you like something. So if you're not sure about what you want to do before you get started with school, if you're going to school, or if you're doing trade school, even if you're not doing that, there's ways that we can help you guys with that. So feel free to reach out. I work with all the industry partners. Once they come back on, I'll quit talking. But I work with all the industry partners. We do events, education, training. We do all that for people in the construction industry. So, and then we're working with all the schools and students like you, because our industry really needs people. And so we're hoping that a majority of the kids that are in school will go into these fields, because there's a lot of opportunities for you guys, and to make good money too.
Okay, I just talked to Sergeant Brack. They are trying to get logged out and then logging back into the Zoom meeting. So they're going to try getting back with us here in just a minute. And Julie, can you talk about what kind of jobs there might be in that heavy equipment industry? Do you know of any maybe companies that they could start looking at?
Yeah, well, a couple different things that you might see, and Sergeant Brack's back. I don't want to take his time, so I'll let him talk.
All right, exactly. All right, Sergeant Brack, welcome back. And we were talking with Sergeant Johnson.
Yep, you were talking with Sergeant Johnson. He is right here. We're going to try and keep the tablet right where it's at. I might try and pivot a little bit to show you all some stuff, but we'll have to leave it right where it's at to keep reception in the bay.
All right, can you all hear me?
Yes.
We
All
can
right.
hear you.
Let's talk about the vehicle right towards the back. That's the wrecker. Wrecker is used for many different various of uses. For one example, so say you got a vehicle stuck in the ditch, or for example, the vehicle over there, vehicle, one of the dozers got stuck and they're trying to build a flat surface. And for whatever reason it got stuck, we can use the wrecker to pull it out. Another example of what the wrecker could be used for is say you're trying to work on a vehicle, you actually got to swap out the engine. A wrecker could be used to lift that engine right out the vehicle, put it on the side and grab the next engine and put it back in there. As a mechanic, then we'll have to go in there and do any other type of repairs. Sometimes on the dozer and other vehicles, you may get broken hoses or hydraulic lines. We have other variations of equipment to help repair that. One of the examples would be the contact truck and also the trailer over there. I will walk you over, but the video's kind of messing up right now. On those pieces of equipment, we have tools that we can use to fix it. So as far as being repairs, we can do all of that using the side. I also work at Walmart, so at one point in time, I was pushed that I gained with the military to help me push my career further on the civilian side as well. Are there any questions?
Yeah, we do have some questions here that the students submitted. And if students, if you have any questions that have come up, please certainly feel free to put those in the chat and we'll get to those too. So as a heavy equipment operator, do you work in the machine on site? Do you transport it to sites? How does the equipment get to where it needs to be?
Yeah, so as far as the heavy equipment operations side of the house goes, that's one of the reasons why we get trained on hauling our own equipment. So we actually have large semi trucks with gooseneck flatbed trailers. And so some of these big pieces of equipment, such as the deuce here, these and some items that are even bigger, we'll actually load those up ourselves here at our own facility and then drive it out to whatever the site is that we're actually going to do our dig operations at. Otherwise, some of our equipment, the military has tried to diversify the equipment that we utilize. So specifically on the military side of the house, some of these pieces are highway capable. The tan one that you see behind me is actually interstate capable. It looks very similar to a front loader backhoe that you would see on the civilian side, like from John Deere or something like that, but it's actually made by a different company. But that one specific, we can get up to about 60 miles an hour on the highway. So we utilize it for convoy operations going to and from either a dig site or training locations.
Another question we have is what are the hours for a heavy machine operator or a heavy machine mechanic? So what are the hours? What's a typical day look like?
It's generally pretty standard. I would say that on the operator side of the house, most of the ones that I've worked with in my civilian career, they work from anywhere from 6 to 3:30 or 7 to 4:30. Some of their hours differentiate, whether it's an 8-hour day or a 10-hour day. A lot of that depends on what the job is in itself. Usually when you're getting into really any trade job, they are more project oriented versus hourly oriented. So we try to get to a nice stopping point before you split for the day. So that's something to take into account. I mean, I know as a construction worker, I was pretty standard 7 to 3:30, and I would make sure that at 3:30 I was at a good stopping point. So most of them are pretty standard, but if you're working on a large project or a specialty project, sometimes you got to push your hours on a little bit further to make sure that you're getting the job done.
And I'm sorry, is that different from the mechanic point of view? Do you have a long, because you're in probably.
And as far as like, I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
So from the mechanic side, you're probably more in a bay, working in a bay like we see in the background. So as a mechanic, are you working different hours?
So as a mechanic, it's actually similar hours throughout the week. So it's the same instance. If I have a more bigger project, I may have to work a little bit longer hours. So If it's a quicker project, maybe even shorter hours. So it kind of varies within that.
And then what kind of training is needed to be a heavy equipment operator?
Typically speaking, so if you go on the civilian side of the house, they usually go through an operator's union. An operator's union is going to go through an apprenticeship program. Those apprenticeship programs are going to certify you on driving certain types of equipment. So in order to be a licensed operator, you have to have that specific piece of equipment on your license, on your operator's license. So when we're talking, I specifically, when I went through my program just for guard training, I was trained up on 9 different pieces of equipment. One, on top of that, once you get to your actual unit, if your unit has specific equipment that is different than what you were trained on, then they will get you trained on that equipment as well, and then make sure it's on your license, and then you are able to operate. They also keep logs of how many hours of operation you have per piece of equipment, so that way you have something. It's kind of like building your own resume, especially when you're talking about an operator's union. They want to know how many hours you have actually operating this piece of equipment, because they can kind of justify, you know, what your expertise level is at that piece of equipment, depicting from how often or how many hours you've actually worked on. Does that make sense?
I have a question, Kelsey, real quick.
Sure, jump in.
So from the guard side with your heavy equipment, how often are you using that equipment as a National Guard?
As a National Guard, I would say we usually get some good heavy operations 2 to 3 times per year. Typically, anytime there's flood season, we'll get an opportunity to get out there and do that. Otherwise, we also make sure that every summer we run a 2-week operation. So any guardsman across the board, in the summer, you're going to have 2 weeks of doing your job so that you can maintain your readiness and maintain your ability to do your job well. So for me in the past, we've gone to Camp Ripley, Camp Dodge, Fort McCoy. Those are the ones that we primarily go to do our dig ranges. But when we do that, we do various different things. I mean, we're talking anything from constructing a road or a ditch to constructing battle positions. We dig fighting positions, or we help build fortified walls for small places. Basically, we have like a 12-foot berm all the way around a camp, and then help fortify it so that it's protected from outside sources. But then on the civilian side of the house too, I mean, depending on what the state needs, you know, it being Iowa, and especially for the glory that we've had in 2020, you know, we've helped out in multiple different opportunities, or helping out with disaster relief as well. When we had the land hurricane come through, you know, we had a lot of people, especially in Cedar Rapids. We would take a lot of dump trucks. We would take specifically this vehicle right behind me. It has hydraulic hookups for chainsaws. So we got out and cut up trees that were falling down after the Urenco land hurricane that we had, and hauled that away, the dump trucks that we own, and tried to help to get out, especially as a heavy equipment operator.
Thank you. Interesting.
And I see one of your other questions here is what kind of training?
So on the mechanic side of the house, basically they'll send you off to about a summer's length. You go ahead and learn how to do many different things as far as preventive maintenance, as far as PMCSs, which breaks down just the things you have to do while driving the vehicle. The other side of it, you have to deal with changing out transmissions, the CV joints, flipping out the engine, all sorts of type of stuff. The training is very detailed, and it's also to be used on the civilian side as well if you were to decide to switch over to be a diesel mechanic also.
So what are some of the things that you enjoy most about your career, and what are some of the challenges you face?
All right.
You said first.
So I'll say what I like the most is the opportunity to do more. So even though I'm a diesel mechanic, I'm also assist certified. So that's suicide and mental first aid. I'm also the company hazmat officer. So basically dealing with any type of hazardous waste. I'm also public affairs. So far as taking photos and other things like that, I have the opportunity to do that as well. So I'd say that's my favorite part about being in the National Guard, is being able to get certified in so many different things and being able to help out people so many different ways.
I would say I'd have to second a lot of what he just said. I mean, the opportunity to get more rounded. Typically, the problem that people face, especially nowadays, and this is only my personal opinion, but it's hard to dedicate to one thing. I mean, people want to go to school for something, and they want to learn something, and then they might change their mind that that's not for them. One of the things that I've loved about this specific career path is that I've been able to do a lot of different things and get paid to get that training, or I've, or my transfer, like a lot of my credits will transfer over in towards a degree plan. If I have joint service transcripts, so I could use training from heavy equipment operating to combat engineering to the medical side of the house to whatever. It gives me the opportunity that I can put that towards a degree plan. I've actually come to EICC a couple times, and I've tried to get. I'm getting together my plan right now of what do I want to put those credits towards. And like I said, the opportunity to do more, it's kind of phenomenal.
So in one of the descriptions, it says that a heavy equipment operator moves mines. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So heavy equipment, these are only a couple different types of equipment that we use, but we also have what's called a mine roller. And as crazy as it sounds, mine rollers are actually built and meant to roll over landmines. So what happens is it's basically a reinforced front structure with just like a steamroller that you would see, or not just like, I should say similar to a steamroller that you would see on any standard construction site. We have one that is an up-armored version, and it is reinforced on the front end. Landmines themselves are typically, I don't want to get too much into detail on you, but they're an anti-personnel mine. So they're meant to potentially harm an individual. So we can build vehicles that are reinforced to withstand that pretty easily. So the mine roller will literally go on a route to specifically roll over a mine and blow it up so that it is no longer an option. And then on top of that, we also have a ground penetrating radar. These are all very special equipment. And when I was talking earlier,
One of the other questions here from a student is they're asking if it's scary to work with such big equipment.
I'll be honest, when you first do it, yes, absolutely. And I think that comes with me. I mean, that's just nature of the beast, right? I mean, anytime you're handling something that is way bigger than you're used to or has controls outside of anything you've ever operated, there's going to be a little bit of fear with that. I mean, they have a lot of capabilities. I remember when I first went through my training course, getting put on the dump trucks, and the dump trucks themselves were, 3 times the size of, like 3 times my height, and then probably, 10 times my length. And the fact that I could haul around an entire thing of gravel and then learn how to drive controlled enough to raise the bed and spread gravel evenly and all that stuff, it's kind of scary because you have limited vision of view. So the bigger the piece of equipment, the less you can really see around you. Some of these pieces, when you're operating them, you're operating by feel and not as much sight. So it takes time to really get just getting licensed on it. It's getting active time working with that piece of equipment so that you're actually proficient at being able to operate it with limited visibility. That's a really good question.
Thank you. We have another question from Noah is, do you work with just operating the heavy equipment, or do you have to learn how it's made and how to fix it as well?
We do some on-the-spot fixing as well. Specifically, I actually, this one right here, the green one, I did a training camp down at Fort Polk, Louisiana one summer. And while I was down there, I was in the field for a few days at that point. and we didn't have any mechanics with us. And for some reason, the blade had just dropped to the ground, and we could no longer lift or manipulate the blade up or down or sideways. So I had to actually crawl under there and figure out what was going on, and a hydraulic line had busted from there. And if there's one thing that we've learned, it's, you know, we're not the mechanic. We can't fix it, but we can find a way to truck on and get the job done. So instead of, you know, having a vehicle that couldn't go anywhere because the blade was stuck, we used one of our other pieces of equipment to lift the blade up, and then we strapped it in place to hold the blade off the ground. And then I actually found a screw and a crimp, and I plugged the hydraulic line. So you really kind of think on your feet, as well as you learn from those who are above you who have already experienced kind of some issues. But just like any heavy equipment across the board, you're going to encounter some problems every once in a while. That's one of the good things about, especially in our organization, it's, you know, adapt and overcome. So it's definitely on you as the operator to do what you can to at least get from A to B. And then we leave all the specialty stuff to the mechanics, because that's not my field of expertise. But the mechanics that we have are great, and they've always assisted us. And especially Sergeant Johnson here. I mean, he works specifically here at this armory. He works with a lot of this equipment, as well as the other light wheeled vehicle equipment that we have. So it's a collaboration. But yeah, we do end up doing some of our on the spot fixes as well.
So you kind of touched on this just a little bit, but for the mechanic side, are they mainly working in like the garage, or are they out with you?
So far as the mechanics, we could be in the garage or we could be out in the field. There's some field operation stuff that we can also do. So when I was talking about changing the engine out, the first time I actually dealt with changing the engine out, I was actually in Wisconsin, middle of the sand, and our engine had deadlines, so we had to get a new engine in and replace the engine, so this way we could use that vehicle to transfer soldiers to the next location. So it could be in the field, and also it could be inside of a shop like we're in right now.
So what are some of the things that students can be doing now during their time in high school to get more experience, or are there any certain types of classes students should be taking, or any kind of jobs to get exposed to this kind of equipment?
So you have your vocational training. So with that, there's like little shops that you could find where you could gain some more knowledge on your tools, and also how to, what's the word I'm looking for? More so operational, and also the training to get the job done, basically. As some colleges, you actually have like programs you can do throughout the summer where you could gain that more knowledge also too.
And I would say, and this is just, again, this is my own personal belief, but when it comes to like first dabbling in like heavy equipment operation at all, I would say skid steers are like the foundation of operating equipment. They're smaller, they're more compact, but you can still do a lot of stuff with a skid steer. A lot of them have buckets, a lot of them have forklifts on them. So what I've experienced in the past, a lot of people will go, especially high school kids, on their summer break, they will go and work for either like a landscaping company, or they'll find a construction crew that they can work for the summer, and they'll try and get a little bit of experience in operating those pieces of equipment. I agree, the vocational side of the house is awesome, because honestly, having some mechanical knowledge going into it is really kind of understand and problem solve as well, instead of just, you know, maybe finding yourself at a loss of knowledge, you know, when an issue arises. But as far as the operation, it is kind of hard to really get out and operate a lot of equipment as a younger adult. You really kind of need to be 18 or older before joining either like an apprenticeship. Otherwise, with the Guard, it's a little bit different too. I mean, obviously, if you don't know, you can join at 17, but you're not going to actually go forth and do your AIT training until after you do your basic training, which would be, you know, after your senior year. So that's, I mean, that I would say that's about the gist, unless you can find yourself in, you know, a situation where you're operating a forklift or a skid steer. That's about the best two foundational places I can see, you know, getting the experience.
And how long does it take before you get really comfortable operating this equipment?
Oh, I think it's really dependent upon the person, and it's dependent on, their interest and wanting to be good at it. There are some people who it's an interesting thing at first, and then they might say, this isn't necessarily for me. I want to be able to do it, but I don't want to like dabble in it. It's the people who are going to strive to really be proficient at that. I know when I went through my AIT training, there were people in the class who, just like I said, there's an array of people. I had a construction background. I dabbled a little bit, so I knew how things function. And I picked up on a lot of the equipment within about I would say 3 to 4 days of operating. I had a good base. I wasn't an expert, but I was definitely had a nice base of operating each equipment, and I was comfortable moving it around and, doing small operations. But I have seen some very skilled operators, and they've only acquired that skill after, years of really detailed hours of operating that equipment and specialty jobs. There's typical stuff that they ask you to do with the equipment, and every once in a while there's something very specific and very special and takes a very specific set of skills in order to do that. So it's definitely time-based, but I'd say you can be comfortable in the equipment and moving the equipment within a week.
Another question we have is, are there apprenticeships for operators and mechanics available?
Yeah, the operators, absolutely. As far as the apprentice, you could probably speak more to the apprentice out of the house for the diesel.
There's actually shops, probably, I don't know if this is Davenport?
Yeah.
So, okay, Quad City area. I'm originally from Chicago, so I don't know too much about Iowa. But I know in the Chicagoland, we do have shops where you can actually gain some knowledge. I imagine it's the same thing in the Quad City areas also, where they'll take you on and you can do your apprenticeship with them. You may not be able to do everything because with a lot of stuff, you have to be above the age of 18. That's just OSHA. But you're able to still gain the knowledge on the tools and gain a little bit more by doing that and get ahead of the pack, essentially.
A lot of that is depicted by the company itself as well. It always helps to have a certification as well. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're going into something. But a lot of times these big corporations or big companies, if you want to go on to be either a mechanic or even an operator, they want you to be certified under them so that your credentials are good for them. So it's good to have the certification. I definitely advise it because it puts you ahead of everybody else that's in the running for those kind of jobs. And I know for me, I've had offers before, especially for having the experience that I have on the military side of the house, but to bring that to the civilian side, even if I had said yes to those jobs, it would have been more of a, hey, you'd still need to do this course and this course because you need to be certified under our brand in order to operate our specific vehicles. And I think that's just kind of what you're going to find across the board too. But as far as the diesel side of the house, a lot of that, I mean, you can have a certified technician diesel, and I think that that's going to go a lot further for you than anything else. And granted, my understanding is that on the military side of the house, your diesel mechanic licensing does not directly transfer over, but it puts you in the shop easily. And then from there, you gain those certifications just like you would anywhere else. So.
And can you talk about the demand? Are there a lot of careers in mechanic and heavy equipment operators? Can you talk about the demand and also kind of maybe like the pay range based on experience and skills and training?
Absolutely. No, that's a good question. The equipment side of the house, you make good money. That's not without a doubt, especially any unionized job or construction industry, you're going to make pretty good money doing it. Side of the house, you're definitely making money, and that's simply because you're looking at a job that is in, one, high demand, and two, it is kind of a dangerous job. I mean, you're being responsible to operate equipment that could hurt somebody if used improperly, as well as you're building structures that are expected to hold the weight and capacity of civilians going across it, whether that be a bridge or whatever. Right now, currently in the Quad City area, we have so much construction going on. Yes, there's absolutely a need for heavy equipment operators. I think and just because, full disclosure, the only issue that you'll end up finding is that when you're first starting out, sometimes it's hard during the heavy winter months, just because with the ground being frozen, it's kind of hard to get out there and operate a lot. But spring through through fall, there's definitely operations to be done. I've got a few friends working on the bridges right now, I-74 bridge, and he's been working steadily for quite a while. And I think he's actually a crane operator as well, so he's doing very well. But there's definitely a demand in the area. I know most heavy equipment operators, I believe, make $40 to $50 an hour. And I think there's potential for more there as well, depending on the specialty equipment. Diesel mechanics, I can definitely tell you that there is absolutely a need for them in the area. You're talking Peterbilt and all the other places that are right out here towards the junction of 280. And there's money to be made there for sure. I don't know if you know how much the civilian side they're making, but.
So on the civilian side, I noticed they make anywhere between 24 to 85,000 a year. So that's really good money. But of course, it also starts off with, you got to get to that level. So you may start off making a certain dollar amount, but over time with your pay raises, you'll get to the point. All right. Then with also being a diesel mechanic, you have the option to start your own shop up. And the great thing about the military is they have so many different programs where you can have your small business degree, and that could also be utilized to start your own shop up, to start your own practice. I imagine it's the same thing for us, the heavy operation too, for us construction as well.
I see one more question here. So would having a CDL help you at all with any experience or getting a job by having that CDL?
Yeah, absolutely. And my last understanding was that currently speaking, coming out of a heavy equipment operation, especially from our programs, you walk out with a CDL license. You just need it signed off by your company commander. But because of the trucks that we operate in order to move our equipment, you can absolutely walk out with a CDL license, and that helps you on the civilian sector for sure, because they already know that you can operate and handle the equipment.
And I can speak to that as far as we working at Walmart. So me being a mechanic, if I were to
It looks like they may have froze. Hopefully that'll come back on here. But while we're waiting for that, again, if you do have questions, feel free to put those in the chat and we'll get to them.
Kelsey, I was going to say before they came back on, and he already mentioned it, Sergeant Brack did, but some of the positions around here for heavy equipment, are with the bridge being built. That if you guys go down there, you've driven across there, you can see just all those different kinds of equipment that are being used. Also, one of the companies in town, Hampton Cranes, they're a big crane supplier, and any big structure is going to have crane operators, and I know they do very well. So, you're always seeing dump trucks going. I'm sure down by West River Drive and River Drive, there's different companies that are hauling stone and gravel. There's all kinds of different possibilities you could do. So. There's a vast variety of different kinds of large equipment. Do any of you have any questions?
What is your contact information? Because you said that was in the chat, but I can't see it in the chat.
Yeah, Mrs. Johnson put it up there. I'll type it in again for you, okay?
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just got off the phone with Sergeant Brack. And he says that their internet has cut out altogether.
Oh no.
Oh,
okay.
no.
So he asked if you have any other questions, let us know. Again, we
Hey,
will
Mary,
go ahead.
I'm typing my information for them again.
Okay, perfect.
Don't turn off this stuff yet, okay?
And you'll see up on the screen too their contact information and links to the website. So feel free to take a picture of that with your phone or click on those for the links and more information.
Exactly. And
If you do reach out to me at the Quad City Builders and Remodelers and you email me or you call, if you email, if you could just let me know that you were on which session you were in, because I've been telling every student they could reach out to me. Just let me know which sessions you were in and what school you go to, and then what questions you have, or how any way I can help you, I will. So.
And then I wanted to let you know that locally, if you're interested in the operation side of it, it would be Local 150 Heavy Operators Union, and that's where you can find out information for their apprenticeships and the training.
Well, with that, we'll extend our thank you to Sergeant Brack and Sergeant Johnson, and thank you to all the students for joining us for this session.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.